the world famous Bob Bitchin in here. Let me get everything in here all situated here. And let's see if we can get the man himself in here. Good morning, sir. How are you? Oh, no.
I'm better than nothing. How you?
There we go. There he is. There we go. We'll put you up here a little bit. There you go. So, man, I can't tell you what an honor it is to have you on the show this morning. We really appreciate it.
You need to get out more often.
Well, so let's do a little background here. I mean, you started out in the motorcycle world, and that really kind of started things out for you, and you really got involved with everything going on back in the day. I mean, this was your life. This is what you were doing, right?
Yeah. For about 25 years. I don't know. I get involved in things that I like doing, and I get involved and more involved and more involved.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I started riding when I was kind of young, riding motorcycles. Mm-hmm. And I got to a point where I started riding all around the country. I started getting involved in organizing stuff, and then I started a magazine. Well, first I went to work for Easyriders for the first year they were in business, and then I started my own magazine, Biker Magazine, mm-hmm. which became the second largest motorcycle magazine in the world.
Wow!
And years later, I sold that to Joe Teresi, who owned Easyrider, and I went sailing.
That's right. Well, I mean, and I wondered, had you always been into writing and journalism and stuff, even when you got into writing, or was that something that came out of the lifestyle that you wanted to tell everybody about?
Actually, that's kind of funny. My father went to the Bronx University just before World War II in journalism.
Wow.
And when this war started, he went in. And when I was born, he was at the Battle of the Bulge. It turned out that even though he took his typewriter with him, he was not allowed to write for it. So when he came home, I used to play with his typewriter. And years later, I became a writer. And I have I quit school in the 10th grade to join the Air Force. I was 17.
Yeah.
I wanted to start the adventures of my life. And I couldn't think of a better way to start my adventure than to join the service. Yeah. So back in the 60s, that's what you did. And it changed my life. It straightened me out a little bit, but it also made me enjoy the camaraderie of fellow soldiers or people of the same ilk.
Right.
And shortly I found myself riding motorcycles with a bunch of guys that I used to be in the service with, and then guys that I didn't used to be in the service with, and then started working. One night I went riding in Hollywood, and I met Evel Knievel and ended up being his bodyguard for 1973 and 1974, which was the Los Angeles jump and the Snake River Canyon jump.
Wow. And it's so crazy because I was fortunate enough to grow up in the 60s and having heroes like Evel Knievel and John Wayne and all those great movies from the early 70s and stuff that kind of grew up in. And so I was a big Evel Knievel fan. And, when I read that you had, was a bodyguard for him, I thought that was the coolest thing. So you just kind of...
I was lucky. I never grew up.
Yeah.
I could do whatever I wanted to do because I was still a kid and, up here in my office. So,
yeah. So you started riding around. So you come back from the war and you guys start riding bikes. And this leads to you starting to tell the stories of, the lifestyle of it. And that also led into the tattoo world as well.
What happened was when I worked for Knievel, I realized everybody I met was rich, and they were all in publishing. Joe Teresi, who owned Easyrider, he was involved. Hugh Hefner, Guccione.
Yeah.
They were all covering Evel Knievel, and I was meeting these people, and I was seeing their lifestyles. And meanwhile, I was living in an apartment I still owned 6 months rent to. I had a 1961 pickup truck in the 80s, a 20-year-old pickup and riding my Harley and pretty much enjoying life.
Sure.
And then after Knievel went in the ditch, I decided I had to do something. And since everybody I met through him was in publishing, I lived in Redondo Beach at the time, California. And I went to the local newspaper. I said, "Do you print newspapers for other people?" And they said, "Yeah." And I said, "How much?" And they told me. And I said, "What do I have to do?" And because I'd never set foot in a publishing office in my life.
Sure.
And they said, "Here, you give me a piece of paper. You draw what you want here, and you write it, and you give it to us with some pictures, and we'll take care of it." That's how I started. My first newspaper was a tabloid. It was called Biker News. I did it for a year. Then I sold it to Cycle News, which was the big guys. They hired me for a year as editor, and then I took over as editor of Choppers and Big Bike, and eventually started Biker Magazine. And I don't know, it just evolved. It just evolved. And then one of the things I noticed about bikers was they all had these tattoos. And as I was getting my tattoos, because I was involved in that lifestyle, one of my best friends was in Gary, Indiana, Roy Boy, and he was doing my tattoos. He says, "I would love to advertise if I had a magazine." He advertised in my motorcycle magazine, but he said, "Nobody's really done a tattoo magazine." So I said, "I'll try it." I did one issue, sold like hotcakes.
Wow.
And advertised. I didn't figure we'd be able to get any advertisers because, it's all just little guys in little shops.
Sure.
Turned out they all wanted to advertise.
Yeah.
It became a very popular magazine. It lasted for about 27 years. I sold it in 1986 to Joe Teresi at Easyrider. And when I sold it to him, it had about an 85,000 circulation. He took it to over 1 million in 7 languages.
Wow. Well, that's fantastic. And did you continue to write for him even though you sold it, or was that was
Yes.
yeah?
Yeah. When I got on my boat and I had to have someplace to go. My problem with life is that I love traveling.
Sure.
If I'm on the road, I'm happy. I'm not on the road, I'm miserable. So I'm not on the road right now.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
Well,
Go ahead.
yeah, I had heard that, and I'd read and probably saw it somewhere. I mean, because I've been getting your newsletter for probably 12, 15 years. I don't know how long it's been that you've been doing it, but I know I've been getting it on my email, and it would pop up, and you'd be here, and you'd be there, and you'd be, all this stuff, and I thought, man, this cat is really, really doing everything that we talk about, because we're always talking about, living your life, following your dreams, and don't let people tell you that you can't do things or whatever. But really, things like you becoming into sailing was kind of something that kind of saved your life, right? It was kind of again another happy accident that come along that you stumbled across, and you were looking, whether you knew it or not at the time, you were looking for another adventure, and that became it.
Yeah, I learned long ago that luck is much better than intelligence.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was in the motorcycle thing. I was very much into drugs. I mean, very much. I rode with the clubs. I started an organization called ABATE, a Brotherhood Against Totalitarian Enactments, which became the world's largest motorcycle organization when we opened it up to Europe in 1980. But we did in 1979, we had the world's largest motorcycle event, and it was a helmet law protest. And we had 350,000 outlaws ride on their local federal buildings on June 29th, 1979.
Wow.
And it was the culmination of about 3 years of organizing. And it was the most fun I've ever had in my life. And I ended up writing my first book about it, Brotherhood of Outlaws.
Yeah.
And that was a story about that 1979 helmet law protest. But it had to be written as fiction because we did a few illegal things like there, mostly drugs. But, so to your point, yes, sailing saved my life. I was very, very much into hard drugs. I never used injectables, but I did everything you could put up your nose or take in your mouth.
Right.
And a friend of mine called me, and they were blockading Diablo Canyon when they were building the nuclear plant there. friend of mine was crew on the Stone Witch, which was the flagship for Greenpeace. It was a 74-foot square rig topsail schooner, actually a barkentine, and it had no motor. It had four 21-foot oars. It had kerosene running lights. We drank tepid Kool-Aid, and it was marvelous. But I was 30, so I could live like that when I was 30.
Sure.
So they were in trouble. They needed to get out of the country. Jane Fonda was on the boat, and they got arrested on the boat, blockading Diablo Canyon. So my buddy called me and he said, "We need $8,000 to get out of the country. We need to provision this boat." And I said, "Can I go?" He said, "Yeah," because once again, drugs. Anyway.
Yeah.
And so I gave them the money. They provisioned the boat, and my girlfriend and I jumped on the boat. And it's the first time I'd ever been sailing. First 3 days, I was so sick I wanted to die. Third day, I woke up and I felt phenomenal. And I walked out into the galley, and the smell of the coffee, and there was no motor on that boat, so it had just the smell of the sea. I mean, it was. Yeah. I used to love that smell. I could leave the boat and go, "I'm home." You know, it's with you, right?
Sure.
But anyway, yeah, it saved my life, because you can't get drugs out there. And then I found out you don't need drugs out there,
right? Because
you get the same high waking up in the morning that I used to get doing a line of coke or something. It's amazing. The life out there is amazing.
Well, I was so glad, because you've always been one of my heroes as well, doing the things that you've done.
Like I said, you need to get out more.
I know. It's a small circle, but when I realized that, you didn't really know anything about sailing, and you got seasick, because I had a little incident down in Mexico a couple years ago, and but it had a lot to do with the shrimp buffet before we went, and the night of drinking before, and so I got terribly sick. But you've always said, by day 3, like if you're sailing across the ocean, by day 3, you don't even realize that you start to get into the sway of way things are, and you
get your sea legs.
You get your sea legs, and but man, those 3 days is hell.
Well, anybody who's done it knows that after 3 days, when you go back to land, and you're walking into a restaurant, and you're walking like this,
been there, yes, been there,
yeah. Well, I mean, so I was glad to hear that, but then sailing did give you more clarity, I would say, from a writing standpoint, and it seems to me that once you got off of those drugs and that lifestyle, which was really setting you up for doom. You had so much opportunity, so many great things happening around you, but drugs has destroyed a lot of things. And then once you got that out of your system and really started enjoying sailing, that seemed where the half part of your life has just been a whole nother thing.
Absolutely. The difference in lifestyles between when I was writing, which was the most violent lifestyle the second most lifestyle you could live in Palestine, but the most violent lifestyle that I could imagine was the outlaw motorcycle lifestyle. But the sailing life is the mellowest. I mean, it's 90% kicking back and loving life. It's 10% sheer terror. You never know when the sheer terror is going to come, which is the best part.
Yeah.
Because you have to be ready for that. And so you're spending all your time looking at your boat going like, is this okay? Is this okay? Is this okay? And then a storm comes and you don't have to worry. I mean, you got everything battened down. You just tie yourself in and enjoy it. When it's over, when you start to see the light at the end of that storm, that's what life is all about. That's what life is all about.
And there's all kinds of these fancy boats out here with all kinds of radar and all this stuff. But you were a chart man. You wanted to see where you were going, and you had GPS and stuff, backup things, to kind of keep you up going. But you really enjoyed studying the chart of the maps, which way to go and see where you were going, and you had the opportunity to say, well, let's just go here, right?
Well, more than that, with the charts, I don't even know how to say this. I had a chart. It was the chart of the Pacific. It was the overall chart that covers from Australia to the United States and Panama. And I had that chart for almost 30 years.
Wow.
And every time I'd make a crossing, when I'd go to Hawaii, I did that trip 7 times, 14 actually, because there and back, and the South Pacific. Every time I did it, I'd keep 3 positions on the chart, one in pencil, one in pen, and one in red. And the one in red is when I could actually, I mean, when I started sailing, I was using a sextant. So I never really knew where I was. I was guessing.
Right.
But every once in a while, I'd see a big ship and they'd have satellite and they'd go, yeah, this is your position. I'd put that in red. But I'd keep a dead reckoning in pencil. And then I would keep my celestial in ink. And after a while, that chart had these lines crisscrossing each other because when you're going south or you're coming,
Yeah.
And so I had that chart framed. And it was in my office when we lost our house in the Bear Fire in 2020.
Yeah, gosh. I mean, that was such a horrible thing. We had the guy on the show, I want to say it was 2019, 2018 in Paradise when they had
Paradise,
that.
2018. That was 2 years before our fire, 2020.
Yeah.
We're only 10 miles from Paradise.
Yeah, and I mean, it wiped out the whole town, and he had wrote a song about it, and we had him on the show, and I remember talking about it.
Yeah, 85 people dead, 8,500 homes, which it was a small community.
Yeah.
When it came through our town, I live in Berry Creek, which is just across the Feather River from Paradise.
Gotcha.
And we're at about the same height. We're at about 2,000 feet. They're at about 2,500 feet. So we're in the same basic area, but the river protected us from that first fire. The fire we were in was actually the second largest fire they had in California. It was 300,000 acres. And it started 50 miles north of us and burned right down to our house and then stopped.
Man, I'll tell you that it's such a. I mean, because I know you had all these years of things with the magazine and all this stuff, in that house, But I remember seeing something or reading something, after that. I mean, you've always had a great attitude about. I mean, it's as devastating as things that happen. You're still alive. You've got this new journey to go on. That life has a way of just throwing curveballs at you.
Well, I just turned 80 2 months ago, which is about 35 years more than I ever expected to live.
I understand.
I can honestly say I don't know 2 people still alive that I've known all my life, and that's my brother and sister.
Yeah.
I mean, basically, everybody that I rode with back in the day, Sonny Barger, they're all gone.
Yeah.
And it's so looking back on that life, I don't want to go back to it. Now, I still ride. I've been riding for over 60 years.
Sure.
I'm riding a Harley trike now because I had to replace a hip. But 3 wheels, 2 wheels, I still get out there, and that's what makes me feel good. That's what keeps me going. When the Vigoro starts hitting the Mixmaster, all I got to do is get on my bike, turn left out of my driveway, and 48 miles at the top of the Sierras is a little place called Bucks Lake. They have a little lodge there. Todd is the bartender. He's a biker. I've known him for now 20 years. I feel anything, get on the bike, turn left, hour later, have a beer and a tree smacker, turn around. Tree smackers, you got to find out about that.
Yeah, life is good.
Turn around and come back down, and life is good.
What about now? You've also, with pirate radio? You done a little bit of radio as well. Are you still doing that?
Yeah, I've been doing pirate radio for 4 years. Saturdays at noon, replaying at 8 Eastern time, and it's a 1-hour show that I do a couple of little, tell people about what happens when you're out there for about a minute or two.
Right.
Then we play the music that I like.
Yeah.
And I like all kinds of music. I mean, I like hard rock. I like pop. I like classical. I like jazz. I
Sure.
like blues. I've got a lot of friends who are blues singers. I've got a lot of friends that are in rock and roll, and it makes me feel good. Music makes me feel good. And so my show makes me feel good. I get to sit here for an hour and play whatever I want.
That's right. Yeah. Well, that's the way
station. So
that's the way we are here at Tiki Man Radio. I mean, all the DJs, you know, they have their own shows. They play their own music. The radio station is a reflection of basically what you just said, which is we call it coastal Americana, but it's happy music. We don't do politics, don't do religion, we don't do none of that stuff. We just escape to wherever we want to go. And your buddy Eric Stone, you know, we got a lot of his music in there, and you know,
I got to tell you something about Eric, because I love that man. I got to tell you, about 27 years ago, I was at a boat show. Sorry, I forget which ones I'm doing. I was at a boat show in Chicago, and I hear this music over in the corner, and there's a guy standing there just all by himself playing in where they sell coffee at the boat show.
Sure.
And I had a meeting, and I'm sitting there at this meeting, and then I'm listening to this guy. He's really good. So I walk over and give him my card, and I say, "Hey, if you got a CD?" And he says, "No, but I'm making one." And I gave him my card, and he says, "Oh, you have a magazine? I'll be right over." And he, on his computer, he printed me a CD of his first CD.
Wow.
From his computer. It hadn't been published yet. And I loved it. And so I started promoting it through the magazine. Well, a few years later, we were starting a TV show. And so I'm sitting at the Oakland Boat Show, and Eric's playing. A guy named Yellow Shoes, a friend of his, is there selling his CDs.
Yeah.
Gary Haas is his drummer. And I'm sitting with Darren O'Brien, who became my producer, who I had been helping sell a CD. He had made a video, DVD actually, about sailing up in the Northwest. And I'd been helping him promote it because I liked it, and he's a good guy, and he didn't have any money.
Right.
So I helped him out for about a year, and then at the Oakland show, we're sitting there talking at the listening to the band. The band quits. They walk over and sit down, and I'm just asking him. He says, "What's going to take us to do a TV show?" Because a new network was starting called the Water Channel, and they'd offered me a spot for my magazine.
Yeah.
And I did a TV show. So he said, "Well, it would take about $85,000 to start." And I said, "Oh, I don't have that." And Yellow Shoes says, "Could I be a producer?" I said, "For $85,000, you could be president."
Yeah, we'll make you president. Yes.
Yeah, I just want to be a producer. I said, "You're a producer."
I crown you producer. Give the man the money.
He says, "Well, we're going to need music,
Yeah.
And Eric pipes up, and he says, "I'll give you my whole everything I've got, either with audio or without audio, and with audio, so you could use it for background. And all I want is at the end of the show, picture me saying music by Eric Stone."
Oh.
We said, "Done." So then I look at Darren again. "Dude, what do we need now?" He says, "We need a hottie." And Gary, the drummer, takes out his wallet, shows me a picture of his daughter, who had just left Fox as a sports announcer. Blonde hair, blue eyes, beautiful. And she worked at the Cheesecake Factory because she had just left Fox, less than a mile from my office.
Oh, wow.
2 days later, she walked into my office, and I hired her. Yeah. And exactly 1 year later, at the Oakland Boat Show, we showed the first half hour show of Latitudes and Attitudes TV, which went on for 5 years. We did 65 episodes.
Wow. That's amazing.
Wow.
So much.
Well, Eric is, he's always kind of one of the first times I ever went down to Key West, he used to have a bar about halfway down to Key West. And
I was an investor.
Yeah, well, there you go. I loved that place. I hated it when, it all went south. And this is back when he was married to his wife at that time. But it was a cool place to stop at as you're traveling down Highway 1, and I used to love to go down there. But Eric has always had that ability to write those sailing songs, and it naturally, a lot of what they call trop rock artists are out there trying to cater to this crowd or the Parrot Heads or this or that. But he always went to those boat shows and played his music, and that was his niche. And I always wondered why more people didn't do that, because
We used to throw parties at the boat shows, Chicago, Newport, Rhode Island, Miami, St. Pete.
Yeah.
And we would bring him in for all the parties. We for 27 years, we would throw a minimum of 3 parties a year, usually 5, at the bigger boat shows in the country. Yeah. And it was always free. I mean, we never charged for anything. We had free beer, free pizza, and free music. And Eric was the free music. And I love the man. I mean, he just, what really blows me away right now, he has now written as many books as I have.
I know. I've got to get him on the show because I write books as well, and we have a thing called Tiki Bar Publishing, and I want to get some of your books on there. How many books have you written now? 11. And I'd love to, have you on the show sometime or another to talk about some of those
but
books.
It took me 50 years.
Yes, I understand. Yes, yeah. Yeah, he's just banging them out now,
Yeah, he's
yeah.
He writes them faster than you can read them.
But a lot of your stuff that you write about, the magazines, you had the the newsletters, the TV or whatever, all of this adventures and experience, if you will, that you learned, these were real things, and you pass along a lot of great information, like the 3 days, what happens on the 3rd day. I mean, what was the longest sailing trip that you did? I know you get that asked all the time, but
well, I mean, it would depend on what you call a sailing trip. We did a 6-year. My wife and I, before she was my wife, she was my bartender at the Portofino Marina.
Right. You kidnapped her. I've heard that story. You kidnapped her and made her go with you.
Yeah. You're going to go. I bought her a return ticket from Australia, from Tahiti. I bought her a return ticket from Tahiti before I'd leave because her father was a sailor. He built his own 45-foot junk-rigged schooner and lived for 25 years. And when she went and sailed with him and said, "I'm going sailing with this guy," and showed him a picture of me in all my tattooed glory.
Yeah, covered in tattoos.
He kind of said, "Don't get on that boat."
No, you're not.
I mean, she was my bartender, but we'd never dated or anything. We were just good friends. We really were.
Well, our favorite saying here is, our slogan for the radio station is, "What could possibly go wrong?"
I've stolen it because I'm starting to use that now. Then again, I stole it from Bradford Rogers.
There you go.
He uses it on his How Not to Sail broadcast.
Yeah. Well,
so okay, I got to pimp my newsletter. It's called Bitchin Attitude.
Yep.
And all you got to do is just look at Bitchin Attitude or look up Bob Bitchin on the internet. Yeah. And it's free. It's absolutely free. And what I've done is I used to do a magazine, but print magazines have gone the way of the dodo bird.
Yeah.
Because during COVID, when they closed all the bookstores stopped carrying magazines. And then when they reopened, much smaller.
Right.
So I got out of the magazine publishing business and created something that I like better. And it's a newsletter that has links to my favorite 2 songs that I play that month. Usually they're funny songs like Tom Lear, Poisoning Pigeons in the Park, and things like that.
Yeah.
But I put 2 videos like that in there. I put 2 of my editorial videos, which is, talking about what it's like once you get out there.
Sure.
And basically it's all fun. All the cartoons that I've got like about 40, I think, cartoonists right now that I have arrangements with. And I run cartoons in there. It's entertainment, but it's online.
Yeah.
So you don't have to print it, which saves us about $50,000 an issue.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing how things have changed. You go back to all those magazines that, you walk into an editor, which probably seemed scary at the time. How do I get this started or whatever? And now everything's on the internet, and it's so much easier to get it out there.
Yeah, it's all being edited by quality now.
Yeah.
You want to watch it? You don't want to watch it. You have the choice.
It's the same thing with radio. I mean, 10 years ago when I started this radio station, the idea of internet radio was kind of like, well, what station is it and all that other stuff. Well, now everything's on the internet, and one of the good things that did come out of the pandemic was everybody was sent home. They had to work from home, and all of a sudden they're listening to internet radio. So,
speaking of internet radio, pirate radio, P-Y-R-A-T-E, pirate radio.
right.
Our partner in that is the grandson of the guy who started pirate radio in England with the boat off the coast.
Oh, very cool. Very cool.
Pirate radio, but that was P-I-R.
P-I-R, yeah.
But it's the grandson instead,
Yeah, and the pirate radio that you do now, that's P-Y, right?
Correct, P-Y-R-A-T-E, pirate radio.
There we go. Well, Bob,
worldwide, it's been going for 10 years now. It was a joint. I started Latitudes and Attitudes Radio when I had my magazine.
Right.
And I had it going for until 2012. And my friend Dan Horn, he had Tradewinds Radio. So what we did was we said, okay, let's just put them together in pirate radio. And then we included England in it. And pretty soon it's worldwide.
There you go. And, people want to listen to it because, it's if you're sailing, you're out on the water, you kind of want that kind of vibe. But like you say, you got to throw in some good rock and roll, and you got to throw in some blues and all this other stuff as well, because, people got different. Nothing brings people together than music. And no matter what little island you sail into or whatever, we were in the Dominican Republic 3 weeks ago. Loved getting out and meeting the people of the Dominican. And, I just love your adventures and, everything that you're about. But more, I got to tell you, Bob, the one thing I've always loved about you is you always try to put a good attitude about something out there, and you use your own experiences and sometimes mistakes to say, this happened to me, and this as well is how you can make your life better. So we really appreciate it.
There's a good reasoning for that. When I started my first publication back in 1963, 1973. Sorry, 73. I get when you're old. So in 1973, I started my first publication. I wrote my first editorial, and I was thinking, all the editorials you read are telling people what's in the magazine and who wrote it, which is, I think, stupid. You have the magazine in your hand. You don't need to know who wrote it. Yeah. You don't need to know what it is because you're going to read it in a minute.
Yeah.
So I decided that when I write something, it's going to be about what I felt when I was doing something that had to do with the genre of the magazine. So when I was out sailing, and it's so easy for me because my third book or fourth book, Letters from the Lost Soul, was a story about us sailing around the world.
Which was the name of the boat, right? The Lost Soul.
In the Lost Soul.
Yep.
So all I have to do is open that book and point to a paragraph and read that paragraph, and now I can write something about how I felt when it was happening. Because you remember the feelings you had when you're out there. You may forget places, beaches, something like that, but you always remember the feeling you had when something happened. And because I have the books to go back to, oh yeah, I remember that. And it's something you feel. Yeah. I don't want to write about Fred, who wrote the story about how to fix your sail.
Right.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I got to tell you, it's an honor having you on here. And if there's anything we can do for you, if you ever want to send something to put it on the station or whatever, somehow or another we could work together, you let me know, send me an email or something. And, we're all about positive vibes and,
commercial.
Commercial. Hey, send me a commercial. I'll put it in there for you. Okay. Sounds good, Bob. We're going to let you fly.
You send me one, and I'll put it on pirate radio for you.
Hey, there you go. There you go.
Nice.
There you go. We'll work together, man. But we're going to let you fly, get back to the show. But, man, thank you so much for taking the time. I know it's early out in California, so really appreciate you getting up early and being here with us,
Yeah, I got to go back out and finish my flagstone patio I'm building. So.
Well, there you go. So that the new house is coming along pretty good?
The new house, we're in it and living, and we're just trying to fix the 40 acres of burnt trees.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, that's
Lost
devastating.
15,000 books in that fire.
God.
My whole inventory.
Man. Well, now you just got to write more stuff, okay?
It's only life. It'll be over soon.
Yeah, people like to say, we only live once. Well, the truth is we die once. We live every day.
Thank God.
All right, buddy, we're going to let you fly. How about a little Eric Stone for everybody? Going with a win. Here we go.
Right.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.